Donald Cerrone. So, should he retire? That's the question on the lips of many people, including myself. I'm wondering, after his performance at UFC Vegas 26 against Alex Morono, and I thought the fight would be close, but I think I was more or less leaning in the direction of Alex Morono. If I wanted to make a decision, if I was a betting person, and if I wanted to, to make a decision if I was going to place some money on the fight, who would win. I was going to place my bet on Alex Morono. He's a younger fighter, 31 years old, and Donald Cerrone is now entering the territory of retiring from the sport of mixed martial arts. He is now 38, 39, 37 years old, so it's not too far from 40, but is in that territory now that most fighters do retire from the sport. Of course, you do have some exceptions, such as Glover Teixeira, who are still to this day. I think Teixeira is about 40, 41, 42 years old. He's still competing. So the fight was beginning of the fight against with Donald Cerrone against Alex Morono. At the beginning of the fight, Cerrone did look like he dominated the fight with the first clinch in the first round. Alex Morono was throwing some really a lot of shots, really heavy punches in the first round, really giving it his all, really, really hard. Halfway through the first round, to me it did look like Donald Cerrone was getting quite fatigued and tired. And his shots again, just his movements, overall movements wasn't really as sharp as say Alex Morono's movements were. So I could tell, and even by this point, he had taken some damage. I think his nose was bleeding from his face, and just there was just heavy right hands that Morono just landed, and just from there started snowballing. From there, I think Donald Cerrone just had his guard up, was trying to, not attacking, but was trying to defend his head, his face as best as he could, and Morono just dishing out counter strikes, shots, jabs here and there, and the referee had to step in to stop the fight from continuing. But one thing I did see in that, and I think it's kind of similar to the Alistair Overeem fight that we had December or January now? I think it was January of this year, when Alistair Overeem fought Alexander Volkov. I can't remember the particular name of the UFC event that it was, but I could see in that fight, like I was in this fight, but not so much with Donald Cerrone. I mean, Cerrone is a few years younger than Overeem. But in that fight, I could see that Overeem really couldn't recover from the shots that he was getting from Alexander Volkov. And even after that fight, in his Twitter, he stated he's not going to retire. He's going to go away, have a break, recharge, rest, retrain, spend some time with the family, just freshen up, refreshen, recharge his batteries, and going to come back to compete. And Donald Cerrone is more or less said the same thing. And Donald Cerrone, I haven't tracked the record of Alistair Overeem, but Overeem has a very long record, fought with so many organizations around the world. He's fought in the sport for such a long time. Cerrone has fought for a long while in the sport, especially I think within the UFC. He's had about, I think I wrote this down somewhere. He's had quite a long run in mixed martial arts. But I mean, Donald Cerrone now has about 5 or 6 fights in his past fights that he's lost. I think one of those fights was a no contest, but even then, that doesn't help him because it's no win for him in his books. So many people, not so many people, but I have been thinking. I'm of the opinion, excuse me, I am of the opinion that more than likely, potentially, the UFC could cut him because having 5 or 6 losing fights, at least for your most recent fights, that is not good at all. You go down the rankings, and overall, just without getting too technical, that's just not good luck. It's just not good for you as a fighter, as an athlete. So if he is cut from the UFC, if he's made to leave by force, instead of him retiring from the sport, potentially I think he's still going to go to another organization, either it's Bellator One Championship or PFL, preferably maybe Bellator. Because he's really got the name and the sort of like star power of fighting for so long within the UFC. And but at the moment now, I think he's the time of fighting for the biggest fighting organization on earth has probably potentially run its course. Even though he's saying that he's refusing to retire, and even though it's really vague in that post-fight press conference interview, I mean, overall he's saying that he's not going to retire from the sport anytime soon anyway. So yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can say about that. Just looking at the fighting record, I was quite surprised. You know, there's quite a few losses here for the past most recent fight. So this particular fighter needs a win for the next fight that they're going to compete in. And another question that kind of went over my head, well, not went over my head, but another question that entered my mind is that Donald Cerrone initially was scheduled to fight Diego Sanchez, and after the situation with Diego Sanchez started, and with what's happening with him at the moment, he was cut from the UFC, he was released from the UFC, and they still paid him his fight money, $211,000. And so Alex Morono had to step in at very short notice to replace Diego Sanchez. I was thinking, looking at Donald Cerrone's performance in the octagon there with Alex Morono, if it was Diego Sanchez fighting Donald Cerrone, would the fight have gone the other way? Would Donald Cerrone potentially have won? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop saying all this stuff about I'm quite ill-equipped to make a decision or make a statement. But this is my podcast. I'm gonna give my opinion. If I'm wrong, if you think otherwise, please say so in the comment section on YouTube. I'm happy to listen to your thought, read your opinion and to take that into account. I might learn something new. I may be corrected. I'm happy to be corrected. I think that if it was Diego Sanchez in the octagon instead of Alex Morono, and if that situation with the UFC being cut from the UFC hadn't have happened, it's not fact. If Joshua Fabia hadn't entered his life at all, and he was fighting Donald Cerrone, I believe Donald Cerrone would have won the fight. Okay, now I say that if Joshua Fabia hadn't entered the scene at all, well, he's on the scene now, and if he hadn't done what he did by asking for the medical records for Diego Sanchez from the UFC, and then they released Diego Sanchez, if that hadn't happened at all, I still think that Donald Cerrone would have won the fight. With the sort of coaching that Diego Sanchez is currently following and is utilizing, at least we can see from the past 2 or 3 fights he's had in the UFC before he was released from the organization, potentially he would have lost to Donald Cerrone. I think Donald Cerrone would have won. Take that for what it is. If you think I'm wrong, please, you're more than welcome to annihilate me in the comment section, or in the comment section on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, whether you're listening to this podcast. I'm open to other people's opinions. I'm not a closed-minded person. I'm open to listening to other people's thoughts, especially those who do know more about this topic, mixed martial arts, than I do. But I do believe that Donald Cerrone would have won if it had been Diego Sanchez standing in front of him in the octagon. The fact that Alex Morono was put in as a replacement at short notice to replace Diego Sanchez, I think that potentially turned the tables and changed things a lot for Donald Cerrone. But moving on. So the other fight that was in the fight card, Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. Marina Rodriguez versus Michelle Waterson. This was an entertaining fight. Excuse me, got my throat a little bit. Yeah, this was for me. It was a really, and it's something I've seen with the female fighters in the UFC. In fact, in mixed martial arts overall together, they see when they're in the octagon, they seem to fight far more aggressively. As in, you do have those who are calculating and very patient and very tactical with how they go about their attacks and strikes and kicks and whatever. But overall, in general, I do find that the female fighters are fighting whenever they fight, they seem to be far more aggressive, as in really aggressive with their jabs and their kicks and just how they attack their opponent. But Rodriguez versus Waterson, it was an entertaining fight, really entertaining. It was the main event of the evening, main fight on the fight card. What do I write my notes here? So yeah, Waterson got the ball rolling with a nice left hand at the start of the first round, and as I said before, both fighters were fighting really aggressively, and they seemed to be giving it or just using virtually everything they had in their arsenal to take the other opponent down. And for me, at the just watching the fight from the beginning, it did seem, I was going to say in my own opinion, that Waterson did seem to be the fighter that had the upper hand. She did seem to have the lead, be taking the lead, and I thought she would win, but she was landing some really heavy shots from her end, and overall, if she didn't win, I would have thought that would have been a draw, but Rodriguez did win via unanimous decision. But I mean, overall, that was an interesting fight. Not much else to say about that. So the other fight on the fight card, which was Gregor Gillespie versus Carlos Diego Ferreira. Now, Gillespie didn't waste any time by getting a takedown in, by taking his opponent down to the ground at the beginning of the first round. And his performance in this fight, I did some research and just some background homework on this guy, his background in MMA. It's wrestling has a lot to do with it, which his performance in the octagon is testament to that. So he has a solid background in wrestling, because every time that they would basically, after one sort of grappling, just like a few minutes grappling the ground, and then they separate, again when he's going to go in for attack, he'll always try and take his opponent down. And it's just testament to his background in wrestling. He's a really good wrestler. Sure, stand-up's good, but his ground game is on point. And Ferreira did defend himself quite well against the takedowns, but it was just towards the end where Gillespie just finished the fight. Even though Ferreira had him in a... Was that a triangle? No, I'm confusing this with another fight. So, before finishing the fight, Gillespie had managed to pin Ferreira down to the ground on the canvas, and was just... I'm not sure if I should word this as the same way as worded in my notes, but just laying the strikes on him, just dishing out the strikes on his head, and Ferreira just had no option but just to cover his head with his hands best he could, and the referee had to stop the fight. So, and Gillespie in mixed martial arts has only lost one fight. Altogether, he seems to have fought 15 fights and has won 14 of those and only lost one of those. So he's number 14 in the lightweight division ranking for the UFC. So if he keeps fighting the way he's fighting, keeps winning the way he's winning, so soon it won't be long, it won't be too long before we see him fighting for a title fight. Let me say that. So, and sorry, I was about to say something else, but no, it's not relevant. So there was one fight that happened the last week in PFL, is it Premier or Professional Fighting League? No, I should actually check. Let's make sure I got the correct information. Where is it? Yeah, PFL 3, Professional Fighters League 3, PFL 3. So this was the main event on the main card between two fighters known as Renan Ferreira versus Fabricio Werdum. And they say, when I was just doing some research on this online on YouTube, they say it was a controversial fight, and I thought, why is it controversial? Okay, let me watch, and I saw exactly why it was controversial. These two guys, they just started, and the camera didn't show it exactly, but it looked like both guys had started the fight by just going in at the other, just rushing in, and both guys went against each other with a flying knee. So they just clashed and then went straight down to the ground, and they were grappling for virtually the whole of the first round. The fight just lasted for just approximately just one round, the first round, and it starts off really explosively. They're grappling and wrestling on the ground, and I made a mess of my notes here. So doing Ferreira managed to get on top of Werdum, and one of the guys, I think it was Werdum, had Ferreira in a triangle, but Werdum still managed to land some really nasty shots. I mean, Ferreira really, while he was there on the ground, and it's a fight game, so this isn't like an exception or anything, but he didn't look in a good when. It looks like the referee saved, well, not saved, but stopped the fight in time. And he just didn't look in a good like he was in a good way at all. The sort of shots that the other guy was just landing, it was just crazy. The whole fight was crazy, it was just mad. And I think what helped Werdum in that situation too, even though he was in a triangle, being held in a triangle by Ferreira, I think what really helps Werdum, what Werdum had in his arsenal on his side, was his height. He's 6'8", so I think even though he even though his neck's been held in a triangle by his opponent, that length and that height that he has probably helps him to, just long arms, the taller you are, I guess. That probably helped him land some shots to his opponent and just end the fight. That it was a crazy fight. It just looked. I was looking saucer-eyed. My mouth was open for the whole, just for the whole fight. And towards the end of it, I could feel my eyes just getting being stretched wider and wider in shock and just in awe. Just what was happening. It was mad. And again, just testament to the reality that the UFC do not have the best fighters in the world, and they do not host the best events all the time. So it's an argument that's being had. Also, I do see people making and having the argument online, wherever else, on all these internet forums, who host the best events and who has the best fighters. And situations like it's events and fights like this you see in organizations such as PFL, One Championship, Bellator, all other organizations do host, and I've said this from one of my older podcasts, other organizations, and I said this, I use Bellator as an example. Bellator do have some really good fighters, they really do, and they host some really good events, really entertaining events, and the fights are just like out of this world. And what I don't like is that the organization, just because they don't have that sort of stardom power or ranking power, they don't have they don't control or have a big stake in the market of mixed martial arts or in the market of combat sports. They don't get that recognition that they deserve for hosting some really entertaining fights, some really entertaining events, and they have some really good talented fighters. It is I mean, not that it's something that is against the law, I'm not bitching or whining here, but I do find it really unfair that you have a really good event there and it doesn't get that attention, it doesn't get that sort of recognition, it doesn't get enough eyes on the fighters, on the event that's happening there. So I just want to point that out. It's just something that happened in PFL with this fight. That was the main event on the main card. That just testament to the reality, because it's an argument that many people are having. I see in mixed martial arts, in combat sports, a lot of the time. So enough about that. In other news in mixed martial arts, Diego Sanchez. Now, this situation, as I said before, my last podcast, it seems to be developing all the time. Excuse me. My mouth always seems to get so dry when I'm speaking. I probably should speak a lot more slowly. This Diego Sanchez situation seems to be developing all the time. There was another video posted today that I'm making this podcast of Joshua Fabia, and this is, I think, probably in the same place as the that weird upside down where Sanchez is being hung upside down, while Fabia is punching him in the head and kicking him in the head while he's being hung upside down. It's probably the same place. I can't tell, but in this video, it's a short video which lasted for approximately 25 to 30 seconds. In the video, Fabia is teaching some students, and Sanchez is standing right there, how to do a deadly move. I think it's how to do what was called, or what was known as what he called the death punch, which most people called it nonsense. And I think in the video, the best way that I can describe it, my best interpretation of what's going on in that video is that I think he teaches his students how to throw a punch to, is it the chin or to the neck? And I think that's probably the deadly move, the deadly punch that that people are talking about, the deadly punch, or the deadly move that has been talking about. It didn't make much sense to me, but it looked kind of like, well, I do understand that throwing a good strike, a good jab, a strong shot with your fist, with your hands in mixed martial arts is one of the main staple moves of the sport. But I'm not sure how effective Joshua Fabia's lesson, whether he's teaching a student in that particular video, how useful it is for mixed martial arts. I'm assuming it's for mixed martial arts. I mean, a staple icon of the sport, not Joshua Fabia, Diego Sanchez are standing right there. So I'm assuming that the other students in that video, the other people in that video, they are also probably they are new, not new. Probably they are also fighters, amateur fighters that are coming up in the sport, and hopefully maybe one day they'll join one of the big organizations to compete. I don't know, maybe they're just doing it as a hobby, but my point is basically it did look quite weird and silly. But what's really changed people's opinion of Diego Sanchez, not so much the opinion of people's opinion of Joshua Fabia, is the video that came out over the weekend of, was it Friday or Saturday, but a few days ago now, of Joshua Fabia and Diego Sanchez. Well, Diego Sanchez being hung upside down, and Joshua Fabia punching him in the head, punching and kicking him in the head, and even at some point hitting him with a long object that looked like a wooden stick. It's many people even said they lost a lot of respect for Diego Sanchez, that Diego Sanchez allowed, as a grown man who's nearly 40 years old, allowed someone such as Joshua Fabia to do that to him. And people are saying, I keep saying people are saying, but word is, and well, no, it's with the way things are now, I would have expected someone like Diego Sanchez to look at his performance in his last few fights, because he is, I can see he is a weird sort of character to a degree. He's not a bad person, but he does have that weird tendency, that weird side to his affect, his overall character. But he should be able to look at his performance, look at what he does for a living, which is fighting, and look at how well he's been doing in his last few fights. Well, how well he's been doing, how badly he's been doing, and he should be able to just separate the two, and just separate the two, but put two and two together, and kind of try and understand why what should be working is not working. And even though it may be working in a particular way, it's not working in the way that you want it to work. The outcome that you're getting is not the outcome that you need to succeed in your career, in the sport, that in what you do for a living. So it's, the whole thing really is sad to see someone, after seeing that video. I mean, I was just convinced the poor guy has been brainwashed. He's been brainwashed to the core. And is there anything that anyone can do about it? Because at the end of the day, Diego Sanchez, it's his own life, and no one can tell him what to do. He's an independent person, earning his own money, relying on himself. What can be done about it? Well, unfortunately, nothing. The UFC have washed their hands of him. His Jackson Wink Academy team, where he normally trained, where he used to train before he met Joshua Fabia, they've washed their hands of him. So it's really sad to see someone just be, what's the word I can use, almost be diminished in this way. I do not know why I keep getting so tongue twisted and tongue tied. It's probably because I want to say so many things at once. But yeah, I mean, but I'm sure there's going to be more content emerging about this situation, because it's just really weird. And whose idea was it to put that video online in the first place? I mean, the fact that it's online and it's now been exposed to the whole world, I suppose it's helpful to people to at least have a better understanding to what is actually going on, at least behind the scenes, because I've never seen anyone at all in mixed martial arts, in fact in any other sport, train like that. I mean, many people saying, well, I keep saying many people, but many have said, this is opinions of that I've just come across other people I've had conversations with about this, that there's definitely a sexual connotation, a sexual element to what's being done there, and it's all being done for Joshua Fabia. I mean, at one point there was also another clip they showed in that same video that Fabia is actually now in a ring, and like a boxing ring, and he's standing there with no, not Fabia, Diego Sanchez is standing in the boxing ring, and he's wearing a blindfold covering his entire face. Joshua Fabia is standing there with him, and they're kind of like fighting, I got sparring or fighting with each other, just like training, fighting, sparring. I call it sparring. And for some reason, I don't know what the purpose of the whole thing is. What are they actually trying to achieve? Is it trying to teach Diego Sanchez how to fight blindfoldedly? I mean, I've never seen any sport anywhere at all whereby you've had to compete, whatever sport it is, whether it's MMA, boxing, BJJ, grappling, outside of combat sports, rugby, football, soccer, baseball, basketball, judo, whatever. I've never seen any other sport whereby you've had to compete without your vision, being completely blindfolded, with your face covered. It's ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing just seems weird, and it's just so sad that this poor man, this poor guy, who has done so much for the UFC, so much for the sport, a great guy, great personality, big heart, very nice guy. It is so sad to see him being taken advantage of like this. And what's worse is that what makes it even sadder is that it seems that he just can't see what's going on. He just can't see what's happening to him. He just cannot see that this man, who really doesn't know what he's doing. Even I, as a novice in this sport, as a mixed martial arts fan, I can see that he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing at all, because none of the things he's putting Diego through as a so-called coach has anything to do, bears no relevance to the sport of mixed martial arts, none whatsoever. So, but I think by now, after seeing that video, maybe some people have lost interest. Maybe I'll lose some interest in it, I don't know. But the whole thing is just really sad. It's just a sad tale. But anyway, guys, if you did enjoy this video, if you did enjoy this podcast, if you did enjoy this episode, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy my content. I am going to be rebranding the title of my channel and my podcast as well. I think just to help the gear, so when you look at the channel, when anybody comes across my content, they'll see straight away that it's geared towards mixed martial arts. I'm going to be rebranding the title and just tweaking my logo a little bit and my graphics as well. So you can catch me on Instagram. My name is Ike Mma. On Twitter and on Facebook, my name is Ike Mma. You can also listen to my podcast on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And I think, again, my content is gradually being shared to other platforms as well. So once again, guys, thank you.